Perfectly synchronized here.
Oh, on this side it's not. Right, let's start because I think we can't let the people wait too long. And I think we most probably going to be a bit shorter than what we plan to be. And I'll explain that now. But welcome to everybody um, that's connected. Welcome to all our guests and our guest speakers. I'm very chuffed that we've got the DMRE from the Western Cape giving a paper, which is crucial. Remember, we always used to have that when we went down to the Cape, and Lindsay Polly has agreed to help us out and talk to us. I think that's what we need to do in these days, talk to each other. Right, let me just, as the welcome, just give you the introduction. I think the main thing is the competition legislation. That's crucial in the sense that we never get into trouble as ASPASA with competition stuff. So if there's any feeling that any of you have that feel that we're talking about competition stuff and we're breaking the rules, you all know it by now, then you indicate that. And because of this program being recorded, it will be on record. So that's crucial. I just want to see if my face is clear. So welcome everybody. I'm glad that we had such a good response from the start. And then the other thing is that we are going to just ask you all to stick to the team's rules. If you're not talking, to take your mic off, take your picture off, and so forth and so forth. So I think we've all done these so many times that it's not complicated, and the guys are still coming in and so forth and so forth. So that's the idea of having this Western Cape regional meeting. I think last year we skipped these, but there's so many important things which you're going to hear now, and you've all seen the agenda. The one thing that's changing is that Jeremy Hunter Smith from Blue Rock Quarry, who's our chairperson for the Royalty Act, cannot make it, but I will give a short summary because I'm totally up to speed with that. He apologized and said sorry, he's been called away, so I'll do that one, but the rest will stay like they are. So I don't think we're going to stretch this meeting unnecessarily long because there's important information here, but we also don't want to sit and waffle because you all got other things to do. The gardening is starting to happen, and you're going to have to go and do some gardening. So I hope you're all well and you've all had your jabs. I've had mine. So yeah, I went to Joburg on Sunday, came back yesterday, and I don't have COVID yet. So hopefully I won't. But we haven't had it, and we're hoping not to get it. So we're drinking all this farmers poison and stuff. All the bugs are gone, hopefully. Right, so that's a good introduction. I think we've done enough. If you've got a comment to make, you put your hand up. Annika will help me check the hands, and yeah, then you can say something. But I think we all clued up. So I'm going to introduce Lindsay Polly. Now, our previous PI in the Western Cape, Louis Besaidon, had always used to come and talk to us, and Lindsay conveniently agreed. And thank you, Lindsay, for saying yes, coming to talk to us. And what we're doing these days with our meetings is that we're sharing information. As you know, it's crucial that we all work together. It's not them and us anymore. It used to be like that many years ago. I'm trying to get Lindsay and his colleagues in the Cape to give me the mining license so I can mine Cape Town mountain away, but they don't want to because I say if we mine that mountain away, maybe they'll have a sea view in Cape Town, but nobody's falling for that mining license. Anyway, that's just on the lighter side. Lindsay, are you ready? Is Annika ready to project your talk? And guys, the talks will be shared. There we are, Annika. Thanks, 10 out of 10. And Lindsay, it's up to you, my friend. You take us further. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Nico. Yeah, hopefully you guys can hear me. I am sitting at the ASPASA offices here in Randburg, just to make sure that I could connect. I was yesterday at our head office doing the shortlisting of the hygiene inspector. But yeah, hopefully we can, I've done a presentation, so hopefully I've covered all the points that may be of interest. But yes, Anneke, you can change for the next. Okay, this is what I'm just going to talk about, the description of the Western Cape, the inspectors in the Western Cape, accidents so far for 2021, and then dangerous occurrences that we've had so far this year, our COVID stats, and just general issues. Okay, the Western Cape is, we've got a vast variety of mining, from the offshore quarries and underwater mining, that's diamond divers. We do not have any underground mines, thank the Lord. We have two potential mines that are underground. One is phosphate, which is on the west coast, and the other one is uranium, which is there in the Beaufort area, but they're not operating at the moment. The offshore industry is there mostly from Mossel Bay area. We only got one offshore platform, which is the FA platform that stands on the ground. We've had a couple of floating ones, but they all gone. I know the total was here last year, and they found some gas that Petro SA might be tapping into. Okay, the brickworks, yeah, we've got a couple of brickworks, but now we don't do the factories anymore. We only do the mining area, which is only mined in the summer months because of the rain in the winter months, and due to clay being very slippery, you can't go anywhere with a trackless mobile machine. The quarries in the Western Cape, the Lafarges and Afrimat, Afrisam, yeah, we've got them, and then we've got a few very small places that are sandworks that just do like one loader. The diamonds, they're off the west coast. They mainly Transex people. They do divers. They got divers as well as beach mining. Also trackless mobile machines on the beaches. There's 6 inspectors, yeah, mainly the principal inspectors, senior mining, senior machinery is Willem, and then medical, hygiene and machinery inspector. The reportables are quite low compared to the other regions. However, our dangerous occurrences regarding fires is quite high due to the Petro SA refinery. Okay, this is the list of inspectors. The principal inspector, which was Louis, he left us at the end of February. So, yeah, his position is vacant at the moment. I'm just acting. And then myself as the senior inspector machinery. We've got a Willem, which has joined us. He can answer any questions regarding the blasting. And then the machinery inspector, you got Lungisi Bhuti, and then the medical inspector and the hygiene inspector. Medical inspector was Portia. She left us in May. She resigned, and the hygiene inspector, he retired. That was Dani Latergan. Okay, accident so far is while installing a clamp, the employee was burnt by condensate. That was a leak that had developed on a condensate line, which is hydrocarbon, which was quite hot, and then the clamp actually crushed the pipe, and the condensate came out and burnt the person. Okay, the other one was a person was using a pinch bar to lift the pipe so you can remove some material underneath the pipe, and the pinch bar slipped and his hand was caught. Okay, the next one is a contractor, which happened at the sand mine. The contractor was working on the hydraulics of the bucket. The bucket there was some problems with the bucket not lifting properly, so they got the contractor and He unfortunately must have opened a valve or removed the pipe, causing the pressure in the hydraulics to drop, and the H-frame came down on him. Okay, the next one was a operator that was busy doing maintenance and had the bonnet open. The wind caught the bonnet and closed the bonnet on the guy's hand. Okay, the other one was a diamond diver working underwater, and they pump gravel from the underwater, and then the gravel was sort of pumped underneath the rock, and the rock fell down on the guy's leg, injured in his leg. Okay, dangerous occurrences where nobody was injured. Okay, it's mainly fires. We've had, I think, one sidewall failure at one of the mines, but other than that, all our dangerous occurrences are fires. This one, the first one was a truck that caught alight due to a hydraulic leak. The next one was dryer sleeve caught alight. That was the dryer was used to dry sand, and then the blockage causing the dryer to overheat, and then the sleeve caught on fire. That was people doing sand for the glass industry. The other one was, the next one was V-belt burnt. That was on a conveyor belt. It just means that for me, the regulations state that if the belt should jam, the conveyor is supposed to trip. So yes, people need to check on those regulations regarding conveyor belts. The last one was an explosion in the interceptor tank. That was offshore industry. That's still under investigation. Okay. COVID stats. You'll see we're much lower than the rest of the mines. We're actually quite low. As total was 675, recovery is 615, active at the moment is 48, and we've had 12 deaths due to COVID. Okay, as you can see, I do the capturing for the stats at the moment. Louis used to do it in the past. So, yeah, mines must just be, you guys have all got a COP on COVID. I know there was some confusion last year with the chief inspector sending out some instructions regarding, what did he say? It was monitor and test. So then the mines were contacting us to say, do we have to test each and every guy? And as long as you guys can comply with your COVID COP, your COP COVID 100%. Okay, and then yes, putting on COVID editions, please use my private email address. The government email address gets very full very quick, and then the people phone me to say, your emails are full, so it's easier just to send it to my private email address. And I know some of the mines, they were sending it to the wrong email address, so at least managed to address that. Okay, just general issues that I thought about, and we used to send out a newsletter on a quarterly basis, but yeah, we haven't been doing that since we left, because there's just been me and Lungisi, and we didn't have a mining inspector, hygiene inspector, or a medical inspector. But yeah, we can maybe start doing those newsletters. But what we found is when we arrive at the mine, and then you get answered questions, and you say, but that was addressed in a newsletter, so not blaming all the managers, but yes, if you guys receive a newsletter, please go through it, and if there's any questions regarding the newsletter, let us know. Yeah, blasting tickets. Okay, we've been waiting for the new blasting tickets. Louis actually wanted blasting tickets to have mineral resources and energy, but I spoke to Pretoria. They've only got mineral resources, so they're going to send us some of those certificates, because we've only got the A5 in the office at the moment, but we don't issue those, so we're waiting for the new certificates to arrive, and then we will start issuing those certificates. I know there's a couple of people that received a letter just to say, yes, you have passed, and yeah. So once those certificates have arrived, we will be contacting the mines just to say, hey, yeah, they've arrived, the guys can come and fetch their certificates. But thank the Lord, Willem is now with us, so he will then be testing people for blasting certificates. If there's any other questions regarding blasting tickets, I see he's present, so he can answer that. Inspectors' instructions. Yeah, as inspectors, we are appointed in terms of Section 49 of the Mine Health and Safety Act to enforce the Mine Health and Safety Act. We can't make up our own regulations. So yes, whatever's in the Act and the regulations we can enforce, we can't make up our own regulations. Emergency exits. This was covered in one of the newsletters, but yes, I'd get some questions regarding that, and I always just refer them back to that newsletter, just to say, yes, you guys do a risk assessment, and the risk is low, then yeah, one door should suffice, you know. The PDS on TNM, I see it is going to be chatted about by Anthony. Louis did a whole presentation on the trackless mobile machines at the tripartite meeting in the Western Cape. We went through each and every regulation, and when it came to PDS systems, what his comment was, which I agree with, is the regulation that talks about significant risk. So if you've got a high risk, then you need to put that stuff on. If you've brought in all measures, control measures to ensure that your risk is very low, then you don't need that stuff. And I agree with that significant risk story. So that means keeping people away from TNM, have separate pedestrian crossings, pedestrian walkways, wear the necessary reflective clothing, keep bakkies, LDVs away from the big trucks, have a stopping distance away from, you got those necessary flags on your bakkies. Okay, then the last issue that I got is health and safety complaints to PI. We've had some of the health and safety complaints been sent to the regional manager, and then the PI doesn't know about it, and then it takes some time before I know about it, and then there's a delay in the investigation. Okay, is there any questions? Hopefully I can, the volume is not so wonderful here, but yes, if there's any questions, you guys can ask.
Please, guys, ask questions if there are any. I just want to make a comment. There's one there. Okay, ask your question.
Good day, it's Charlene. May I ask, in terms of the brickworks, you mentioned that you're only looking at the quarries, not at the operations. Did I hear you? Did I understand correctly?
Yes, that is correctly. There was a court case, Burke's Bricks, I think it is. I think they were in the Northern Cape. They took the department to court, and just to say that, listen, they're the brick factory. They're not mining bricks. They're mining clay. So there's no mining operation taking place in the brick factory. They're taking clay and they're making bricks. So they actually won their case, and then we were instructed not to go to the brick factory anymore. So the brick factory would then fall under the Department of Labour.
May I ask, the brick kilns that uses that is so that's considered part of the factory.
Just sorry, say that again.
The kiln, the brick kilns, the stacks of bricks that they heat to dry them.
Yes, the other.
So that forms part of the factory now, not part of the brickworks or the quarry. Let's call it the quarry for ease of understanding.
Yes, that would be part of the factory side.
Okay.
Yes, we've had quite a few fatalities regarding that.
Yeah.
People, especially in the winter, they go and sleep on top of those clamp kilns, and then they die due to carbon monoxide.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much. Much appreciated.
Any other questions? Charlene, just take your hand down. Okay. I just want to add, Lindsay, I just want to add to this question because it's a very important question she asked. And I think there are some of us that think that the judgment was wrong. Because if your mining area includes a brickwork, a ready mix plant, a bitumen plant, and it's on your mining area, then you fall under the Mineral Petroleum Resources Development Act. And then you have to comply to that. And I know that it was in Potch, funny enough, that brickworks. The very interesting thing that came out of that judgment is that the judge said that due to the prosecution of the 54 that was given to the operation, if the lawyers had asked him to award cost, he would have awarded costs against the inspector who gave the section 54. So that's another thing. I think that's why DMRE head office is pulling the guys out. But I will talk about it now. Now, when I talk about environmental matters, we view that the environmental problem, and Charlene is an environmental person, that if you've got a ready mix plant on your mining area and you pumping rubbish into the river or to the stream or into whatever, you will be held liable by whoever, and that will most probably be environmental affairs. It's a very, very interesting court case and a very, very interesting reaction from the DMRE after that. And some of us don't always agree with all of that interpretation. So I thought I just wanted to share that because it's a very relevant issue. I don't know if you want to comment on that.
And now, for me, is we have to now just work according to what the instruction is. I know Louis and Terence Doyle in the Eastern Cape, they sort of disagreed with that, and felt that the department should have appealed that decision, that the brickworks still stays with us. But yeah, the chief inspector gave that instruction, and then we just comply with it, Okay, just the last slide is just thank you. I see Andre's got his hand up.
There's two up, yeah, Andre. I think you guys are muted. Just unmute yourself, Andre, and then Anthony.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes. Yes.
My apologies. Yeah, no, just a quick question. Can I move my crusher plant now to the farm next door, and then it won't fall under the DMR anymore? Then only the quarry will be under the DMR?
Yeah, no, you can move it wherever you want it. We got quite a few places that have been thinking about that, due to the, social development or whatever, just move everything out of the mining area, and then you only got a quarry or whatever, and then you haven't got the expense of social development or whatever, So yes, there is a couple of the idea of moving stuff off mine property is there. Yeah.
Thanks very much.
Andre,
Yes.
just before you do that, maybe just get, and we've got a lady who's going to talk now, and maybe you should contact her. You must just go and check with the Mineral Petroleum Resources Development Act. And I can vaguely remember that if you connect your mine to a plant and there's a conveyor belt, they could see it as part of the mine. But I'm talking out of my turn now, but maybe we should just check that before you do that you don't get caught with that one, you know. I'm just saying, just bear that in mind. Thanks.
Yeah, I was, Nico, I was not serious moving it. I was just inquisitive to see if, because of the brickworks, where they had that clause coming in now, whereby it doesn't fall under the quarry, if it might not be applicable to the mines as well. It's just something to know, you know. I mean, I was just, it was an interesting topic.
Thanks.
Yeah, we got PPC in Riebeek that joins the plant with the mine by means of a conveyor belt. So there was a, what do they call it? The word was a servitude. So if you got a servitude, then yes, it is part of the mine. Any other question?
Hi, Louis. Sorry, it's Anthony Bonia, Lindsay. Just your comment on the escape tunnels that have become mandatory. You mentioned you're quite happy if the risk assessment's done and it establishes that there is a low risk that we wouldn't need to install a second escape route. Do you think that's going to apply to other areas as well, or is this specifically just the Western Cape?
Yeah, no, there's been a problem with MCCs, substations, storage facilities, you know, like storerooms and stuff like that. But yes, under a tunnel underneath the stockpile, that should definitely have an emergency exit. I actually was at one of the mines in the Western Cape on the north coast, on the west coast, and they have finally put it in, which I've been begging them to. So I was actually threatening to stop the mine because stockpile, the tunnel that goes under the stockpile, that should definitely have an emergency exit. You know, the thing is, you have to justify your significant risk, and you can't just say everything is low, you know. So you have to. But yes, most of the mines, I think there's still one that I need to sort of go and visit the mine again and say, hey, where's this? When are you guys going to do that? You know, install that emergency exit out of the stockpile area. Yeah, because there's no escape. If something, if that conveyor belt catches on fire, you know. But yeah, you know, if something does happen, the owner is responsible. Actually, the employer, the definition of the employer is the owner, and that would be the license holder. So you're going to have some definitely difficult questions to ask. But yes, the problem comes in at MCC, where the voltage is very low. It's probably just 500 volts, and then you know, one door should be adequate, you know, depending on the size of it. But yeah, the higher voltage, the more risk you got of OCB or whatever exploding, and then you can say, hey, you know, install another emergency exit.
There's somebody else who's got their hand up. Sorry, I can't see. You can.
Okay, my name is Michael. My name is Michael Nene. It's just that I want to make a comment, a statement that as leaders, sometimes we must know that we've got moral ethical way of looking at things, and the authorities, their primarily is to make sure that the standard that is applied in order to safeguard the employer and the employee must be the same across all the areas. And two, the experience of today are the standard of tomorrow in order to make sure that the repeat does not occur. Therefore, it cannot be then to look to say avoidance is one taking the responsibility as a leader in order not to comply, in my view, because these, like these sessions like this, are trying to get us all together to see what could go wrong before those of us that are lucky not to have experiences to know, so that they can have a way to prevent it from occurring in this regard. I see that as a spirit of why the authorities are there. Why do they have the authority to come and see to make sure the standards are actually maintained? Therefore, they are there for the interest of both, in my view.
Thanks, Michael. That's very relevant and very important that you've said. I agree with you. Who else has their hand up? Because I see there's one up. Anybody else?
It's Charlene again, Nico.
Okay, Charlene. Sorry, I can't see it. I don't know why.
If you put on participants on your side, then you will see the hands next to the participant. But okay. The comment made, can I move my plant away from the mine, is a critical comment in this way. So if you do that, consider the risks associated with having to do an EIA, and in the Western Cape, boy, do you guys have lots of botanical areas that needs protection. So it's likely that you will trigger an EIA for that. So understand if you move, because that EIA triggers with a 300 square meter area. So that's almost nothing. Then, so likely that you will have to do an EIA with a public participation process with its necessary other things. Having said that, so it's a process. It would be an 18-month process minimum. If you want to do that, and then if you use water, you would need a water use license, and if you contaminate the air, you would need an air emission license, and so there's a whole host of a family of things that needs to be considered when you want to move one section of the mine. The other thing that is, I think, quite important to also consider is when that area is on your mine, it forms part of your closure cost. And because the closure cost will change and will become significantly more, there might be an opportunity to actually benefit from moving it before that cost increase. So it is a cost-benefit analysis that you need to consider.
Thanks, Charlene. Are we finished with this subject? Lindsay, thanks a lot for your time. I think it was good. I think that's what was said that we need to share. And hopefully we will see you in Cape Town before the end of the year. Thanks a lot, and thanks to all your colleagues.
No, pleasure. I have to unfortunately go and catch a plane, so please excuse me. Vasia Willem is still with us. Yeah, if there's any questions, you can pass on to him if he's still going to be part of this thing. But yeah, unfortunately, I have to go and catch a plane. Enjoy, and see you in Cape Town.
Thanks. Right, guys. Anneke, the next speaker, well, I think must just keep it short.
Nico, you are next.
I know. Yeah, can you
Okay.
put the slide up?
Okay. There you go.
Right. Guys, thanks. I hope you can hear me clearly. Is it clear, Anneke?
Yes, it is.
Okay. Maybe I should just put my face on so you all know.
Nico, let me just mute myself quickly. Give me a second. Sorry about that.
Okay. Right, are you gone? Right. I'm just going to talk shortly about the environmental um, program that we've got. We didn't do it last year due to COVID, and this year, well, during last year's COVID period, um, the questions were asked, and we asked ourselves, is the route that we're doing or we're going with environmental issues, is that the right route? Because I had a huge amount of complaints last year. So during the COVID thing, I didn't sleep well, and then afterwards we said, okay, fine, let's get a subcommittee. Just a bit of background for those who don't know what we've done. We've got a little subcommittee. We asked Anthony Bowens, who's going to talk about PDS now, to chair the subcommittee. Now, Anthony is a quarry manager, a very effective quarry manager, and firstly, and secondly, he's basically completing his degree in environmental affairs soon. And I'm on his tail every week to make sure that he completes it. So that's very important. So I just want to say a few things and not overdo it. The main thing what we've done is we included as many managers as possible in the subcommittee, and we had very good response from managers and from people in the companies. It was actually quite great. It's just unbelievable. Um, the thing that I put on the slide here that you can all see, we decided to hold 2-day courses, and Anthony basically holds that for us, and he takes us through. We had a very good response on the first one, which was just passed a few weeks ago, and the second one now, it's the same course. Why are we doing it over 2 days? Is some guys caught up in meetings, and they say, oh, I can't come to the course because I've got a meeting or whatever. So we put 2 dates on. If there's a company who wants us to do it for a company, we'll also do it on Teams, and they get their guys together in a boardroom. We can also do it again. So it's exactly the same course. It's nothing different. And once we've done the second time, we'll share it, and it's been recorded, and then we'll share it to make sure. I think that so the date of the 11th of August is very important, and I think if you want to be involved and you didn't know about it, I think as the PI said, people don't read, and they say, oh, I didn't know. Funny enough, we have that problem at ASPASA, but contact us, office at ASPASA, and ask Anneke to send you the link and the program. The next slide, Anneke. What we did is, and not, it's not me, it's the clever people. What we did is, and I've been around for many years, and I never understood this little diagram, and it's very crucial that we all understand this diagram. There's certain steps in a quarry or in the mining process that are crucial, and Anthony came and he broke these down into what we call I call it the 11-step thing. And it starts at the left top on the slide, and that's where your paperwork and your documentation and your stuff is all sorted out. And you'll get a copy of this, and it'll be on the video, and we've shared this thing quite often. But I think that the process is the same in most operations. You might have a little bit of a difference, but that's the process broken down. And I think that's what we want to look at when we do environmental audits and when we do environmental work. We want to make sure that it's relevant to a certain point and not some airy-fairy thing that, that half the guys don't understand. So that's crucial. I'm not going to say too much about that. Anneke will send it out, and it's available on the thing. So the main thing that we're doing differently now is that we're including managers, and we're talking about a manager's presentation. Now, why we do a manager's presentation is that in the past we found that the managers, we had one, unfortunately, I was in this meeting, and I had the manager who was supposed to present the questions that the auditor asked at that stage, and he was catching a nap. So he wasn't very committed to the process. The problem is these days, if somebody knocks on your door and they're from the local community, they're from the DMRE, or they're even from environmental affairs, they want to talk to the manager and not your consultant. And we don't want consultants. They can sit at the back, but they're not going to drive this manager's presentation. They can help develop it, but the manager is going to have to present it. And it's unbelievable. We had a dry run in Nelspruit at Afrimat, and it was such a great experience to see this manager so proud of his operation, and he went through the whole process. So, Anneke, can you put the next slide on, guys? I'll go through it very quick. These are just some slides that we're doing during the training session. And I think what we're saying there is that we're trying to get the manager to know his side, his business. What the consultants used to do, the environmental consultants, they would develop your documentation. The manager would put it in the rack, and then when you ask him something, he takes it out. We had in the past documents which had other companies' names in, because the consultants that drew up the document and asked you a lot of money would just copy and paste. I'll never forget it. Evander, there was a Lafarge quarry, Lafarge operation, and in this document, the MP, it said the airport, which was 20 kilometers away. So they had stolen that from AfriSam, which was the Olifantsfontein one, which had the airport 20 kilometers away, which is OR Tambo. So, you know, those are stupid little mistakes that you pick up when they get audited. So I think the legal documentation, we're asking the managers to know their legal documentation, to understand their local, their documentation, and they need to know what the compliance is. The auditor, whoever that's going to be, we haven't got an auditor yet. We're going to need an auditor from January, but the auditor will be definitely asking these things. We'll coach the auditor what to ask. Next slide, Anneke. What we, and that's why I raised it when we talked about the Birds Bricks case. We're finding that there's ready mixed plants, and we've had a few of them where they let their dirty water, as I call it, run into the river, into the waterway, whatever. So then you have all the environmental people or the local community coming and saying that you've just buggered up in a nice pristine area. So we feel that because of the environmental legislation stating that if you operate on a mining area, you will comply to the quarry manager or the guy who runs the operation, who's the mining part, because otherwise we get problems. And remember, if there's a death on the mining area, it's still going to be a DMRE one. So that's why I said earlier on, we didn't totally agree with the court case. I think what we also asked the managers to do is to identify with the good and the bad stuff. When we went through the Nelspruit episode, it was so good to see the manager understanding exactly what was going on. I think he was well coached, but he knew exactly what was going, and he pointed out the problems to us. And that's what you need, because that's what the community is going to take you on. Don't think communities don't know what's going on. They've got contacts with people that know very well what's going on. And then also the implementation and action plans, and then to share achievements. It's crucial that there's some places that do excellent stuff, but people don't know about it. So we're asking the managers that this is a guideline type of thing which you could put into your presentation, and we'll always help the managers get their stuff together and do it properly. The next slide, Anneke. I think that the problem we're having these days, I've said it a few times now, is with communities and people around this, as I call it, around this table or in this session, will tell you that they're having demands and stuff from all over, and people are wanting to, number one, or close the mines, or the mafia want to take over the mines, and they try and get stuff to nail the operations. I'm having a lot of that coming through to me, which is quite scary what's happening out there. Therefore, we say that there must be community communication with the community. We found that people from outside the community come in and they want to cause the problem while the community understands why the mine is there. The recycling projects, as I said, the waste reduction programs and stuff like that, we need to look at that. Also to delegate these things to people that know, but maybe managers shouldn't just delegate. When you get there and they say, oh, I don't know, it's Susan or Yanni's story, then you've got a problem. So I think in this presentation, we're asking that the managers show us what their place looks like and use a showcase attitude. So be proud of it, because if you're proud of it, and we see it, those people that used to get the high scores, those managers are so proud of their of their um, of their operations. Annika, the next one. Sorry, guys, I'm shouting Annika, but I'm just going quick. The physical site audit, that's a separate thing. The presentation is done in a boardroom or in an operational, whatever you want to call it, and then the auditor will go around. And this is what the subcommittee that Anthony chaired decided to do, and to walk through the place. Paperwork is one thing, walking through is another thing. So we don't want one to be done more than the other. I think it's a balancing act. People say, oh, but their quarry is a show place, and then when you drive past it, you think it's a toilet place, and that's the problem. It needs to be looked at and seen. Wow, that's a neat place. And remember, where the ASPASA started the about face audit, we took the idea from the Americans, which was the USA program. But in the USA, they're only worried about how the quarry looks outside. So the quarries were making gardens on the sidewalks, and it was beautiful outside. And then when you go into the quarry, it was a total mess. And we had that when we started with our sponsors about face. People had very nice lawns and offices and stuff, but when you go inside, it was a disaster. So we're trying to move away from that so that everything is properly done. We also want the managers to identify their mining boundaries. Um, uh, there has been cases where the guys don't know where their boundaries are. Some of the guys have mined into other people, and some of them don't know where it is. So that's crucial. The whole water management story has become a major problem. We found before 2019, we found that there's quarries that have got water licenses that don't have water. And I'm being facetious now, but they don't need a water license. And they paid a huge amount of money to get these things. Others don't have it. So I think that's why we have a clued up environmentalist now on our team as a consultant. And she will tell you about this whole water management thing. It's a major problem. And I think with the droughts and the floods, it becomes even more relevant. Then waste management and oil traps and stuff like that. I think most of you know that. Annika, the next slide. Right. The rehabilitation and the reserves, I think that's crucial. We all know about that. People sell topsoil. You often see it in Gauteng. Topsoil they're selling it off, but I don't know what they're going to do when they rehabilitate at the end of the day. Dust buckets, I mean, our auditors in the past used to moan about these dust buckets, a 2-liter Coke bottle cut off and stuck to a pole somewhere. It's not a dust bucket. And we've had those. That's where I get the examples from. The other problem is some of the people don't even know where the dust buckets are. So I think that's a crucial thing, because you're going to get nailed from community side, but you're causing dust. In many cases, it's the road that's causing the dust and not the mine that we had in Mulder's Drift. So those dust issues are crucial, and the auditor will look at that. Water leaks and wastage and all of that is all part of environmental. The other slide, Annika. Alien vegetation is, I think it's a crucial one. Poor guys in Natal have alien vegetation that grows like weekly, so to keep it away is a very big job. Protection of species, that's crucial. The mine boundaries, the fencing, the signage, electricity saving measures. I think we with Eskom these days, we're having a lot of fun, and guys have come up with very good ideas. And then I want to go to my last slide, Annika, and that's conclusion. So what we're trying to do is to now, what we're trying to do is to lift our environmental audit to another level. Now, let me just brag a bit. We took our environmental audit to Belgium a few years ago, and we had what we call a GAIN meeting there, which all the countries in the world come together, 25 countries, and that includes China and America and everybody. That year, I was fortunate to have with me a senior representative from AfriSam, a senior representative from PPC, my chairman, who's AfriMat, and then the big boss of Afrimat, Andries van Heerden. And we went there and we showed the other countries in the world what we do on environmental and with our audit process. And they said they're not near that. None of them were doing it. We gave them copies, but it doesn't help them because our law is different. So I just share that with you, that they said, wow, you've got something here that's working, which nobody else has got. And that was for the health and safety as well. So we're trying to lift this and make the managers feel it's their program, not coming in there and crapping on somebody. So those days are over. We're not going to do that. If the community comes and shuts you down and you have to explain to your big boss why you were shut down, then that's your problem, because we're going to help you get the place properly. So I think that's roughly what I want to say, is that we want to help you to achieve compliance, and that's what it's about, and sustainable utilization. And I think that's in short what I just want to share with you. If you have any questions, Annika will put the last slide up, and you all know Annika's office at ASPASA or Nico at ASPASA, and you can always send us a mail and we'll help you. So roughly, just shortly, that's just what I wanted to share with you. It's a new thing. We're starting in January. Most probably starting auditing in most probably beginning of February, and we're going to do it differently. And there's also, Charmaine will tell you, we're going to also do some training, other training, legal issues that we need to train people on, because environmental issues are very complicated. I explain it this way. People say they're a lawyer. I'm not a lawyer, but I've got a master's degree in law, as most of you know. I'm not a lawyer. A lawyer has to be registered, so it doesn't matter what law degree you have. But people with law degrees often are specialized. So you have a divorce lawyer, you have a motor accident lawyer, whatever. I'm a labor law lawyer, a qualified guy. I'm not a lawyer. So with environmental, you have exactly the same problem. The person is a water specialist, environmentalist, a dust specialist, environmentalist, a this specialist, environmentalist, and it's very, very difficult to be clued up on all the issues. So I just share that with you so that you understand environmental is a very, very difficult subject matter, and that's why we want to help people. Thank you. I don't know if there's any questions or comments. Right, seems to be no hands. I don't see hands. Our next speaker is Barry Pierce. Barry, are you better now after your COVID? Because you were very sick, eh? And you can put your slides up, Barry. And Barry's in the Cape, and I hope he's better. We've had some bad news with COVID. Our Barry guy, who's our technical expert, who's a consultant, had it. Our Corey, our explosive guy, he's had it. He's been very, very sick. He nearly didn't make it. So COVID has been very near to us in ASPASA. Barry, I'm going to hand over to you, and then you carry on. Thank you very much for connecting. I hope you're better.
Yes, thanks very much, Nico. Yes, we are much better. We still have a fairly high viral loading, so there's still potential issues with maybe blood clotting and stuff, so on a bit of medication for that. But besides that, we are way better than what we have been over the last 2 or 3 weeks. It's something that I certainly would not advocate as a pleasant experience. Been there, done that, done the video, and certainly not wanting to return to that particular scenario. Fortunately, I managed to stay out of hospital, which is not the case with some of the other folk that I know from the lab side of things. But yeah, far better, thank you, and thanks everyone for sitting in on the meeting today. I'd like to give you some feedback on where we are with the technical committee. Aspects I'd like to have a look at is the implementation of the technical audit. I'd like to chat you through some of the issues with regards to where we are with the deeming competent of the lab personnel on the ASPASA sites, and then also where we are with regards to some of the documentation that is going through quite radical revisions and changes. On the technical audit side of things, it is what I refer to as an abridged version of ISO 17025. In other words, it is It is based on what is required for the accreditation of a laboratory, like a lot of the commercial facilities. And we've used that as a basis with the express intent of ensuring that should you be conforming to what is required within the abridged version of what we're putting forward, you have actually got, to a certain degree, a leg to stand on when there is a dispute around the material that you've actually supplied to a particular client. Aspects that need to be had a look at is the certification of personnel or the training of personnel. And I'll talk a little bit about 17024 later on in this presentation. Calibration of your equipment is really important to be looked at. Participation in some form of either inter-lab comparison or proficiency testing scheme. And then some system in place that will provide you with evidence of the testing records that you've actually obtained. We looked at trying to get this off the ground in 2019 and 2020. Unfortunately, COVID came along and was quite disruptive in that regard. But my feeling is I would really like to try and get this off the ground into the latter part of 2021, and definitely start pushing it ahead into 2022. It's run on a very similar basis to what you've got on the safety, health and safety, and the environmental audits, both with regards to the method as well as the costing. So there's no difference in the costing to what you have in those two audits. And there's a template that we will actually fill in and score you against. The difference that I see in this regard is health, safety, and environmental aspects are mandatory. You have to comply with those. Whereas on the quality side of things, it's not something that you need to actually comply to as such. But if you look at it, it's really, that is part of your bottom line. If you get the quality of your material good and it goes out to your suppliers and you don't get any return product, you're actually making good money out of it. Anything that you need to have returned or retested or re-looked at or removed from site or discounted or in some cases even not paid for, the cost to you becomes untenable, and there are lots of situations around that that are ongoing at the moment from a number of suppliers' perspectives, not just ASPASA as such. But I'll also chat a little bit later on with regards to where we are with Koto and some really good aspects with regards to what has happened with regards to where we're at in that regard. Assisting in improving the basic quality of laboratories. Those are scenarios that I think are absolutely critical from a lab's perspective. The improvement in the quality of what is happening with the product that you are actually supplying, I think is absolutely imperative to be gotten right, to ensure that your name stays as high and as good as possible. Although I'm referring to it as being an abridged version of 17025, I'm not expecting all the quarry laboratories to become 17025 accredited. I don't think that expense is actually necessary, but there are aspects of that process that you can get involved in that will give you a foot up or a leg up in that regard with regards to improving your standing when there is a dispute. This slide is not at this point 100% correct, and that is the fact that there were two of us involved in it. It was myself and Frans Beeneke. Frans Beeneke was going to be having a look at the northeastern side of South Africa, and I was going to split it on the southwestern side due to the volume of membership that ASPASA actually has. But unfortunately, Frans Beeneke has passed away a couple of months back. And as a result of that, it's all been shouldered on myself. There will possibly over time be a couple of additional folk that we get involved in this particular process. But at this point in time, I've taken over the running of all of these audits countrywide at this particular point. Couple of aspects that you need to have a look at. The first step would be an initial audit, or what might be referred to as a gap analysis. It will obviously involve a certain amount of getting used to from each of the quarry facilities that is visited. And incorporated into it would be a presentation around relevant documents, changes that are happening in the industry, the COTA document, TMH5, where we are with SANS 3001, some background and information around the actual audit itself. So it will be an informative audit, not just a out with a stick and giving you a rap on the knuckles for being out of line. The second step would be the following year. We would return to the same facility, have a look at what we'd picked up gap-wise from the first audit, provide another presentation on any changes and improvements that have happened within the documentation side of things, and then go through that audit again and make sure that everything that was in place is still in place, and everything that was actually raised as a non-conformance in the initial one has been addressed either partially or fully. And that process will then keep rolling on with the third audit the following year, and the fourth audit and the fifth audit. The basic idea is your benefits are, you should, as a result of undertaking all the aspects that are raised within that particular audit, you should then be obtaining comparable results with the commercial facilities. It doesn't mean that you're going to be perfectly in line with them, but you should be at least testing the same type of method, a wash grading as against a dry grading, so that your results are actually something that are seen to be comparable, and as a result of that, then acceptable to the industry. The other thing is, obviously, there will be confidence in your lab results. There will be a line of communication between your laboratory and your production side, because in the end of the day, your lab is actually telling you whether you're producing the material correctly or not. So the laboratory needs to actually be at a relatively high level, I would be inclined to say just below your quarry manager, because that is the informant that will tell you whether you are crushing correctly or not, whether it's going too fine or too coarse, and whether any adjustments are required. So really, the main benefit is to ensure that what you are producing is a quality product that conforms to the specification that you are trying to meet. What will we have a look at in the actual audits? We'll have a look at your management system for the keeping of records. We'll have a look at the calibration of your equipment. We'll have a look at your staff competence and the training, and then any participation that you have in interlab comparison participation. We don't expect every single facility to have everything in place the first time around. It'll be an iterative process. It'll take some time to get this all in place. And if you are in need of a second audit within that same year, there's no reason why we can't return to maybe give you some assistance in that regard as well, to help you along the way. As I said, it'll be step-by-step process-wise. It'll be an improvement in quality and capabilities as we move along. There will be assistance made available, as I said, to assist with staff training, setting up PTs and ILCs, or helping you to join an existing PT or ILC. And I think the main thing that you need to take out of it is the fact that it's basically an assisted training and quality development program in the form of audits and additional quarry visits where necessary, and additional information that we can impart as assessors with SANAS, as people who are involved in the development of the COTA specs, the SANS 3001 test methods. All that information is what I'd like to look at trying to impart to you with each visit on an annual basis, so that you're as up to date as possible with regards to what's going on. So from my side, I think it's a really great initiative from ASPASA side. It has taken a while to get off the ground because of COVID, and my feeling is, I think it's time that we really just knuckle down and do it. Couple of conclusions: quality lab, quality personnel, and the resultant improved confidence in the results allows for better management decisions on the quality of the product that is being produced and sold. I don't see this as being a quick fix. It's something that is going to take a while to become entrenched into the ASPASA membership. It will be incremental in process. You will grow and develop in what needs to be looked for. And basically, at the end of the day, we look at creating professional facilities whose results are valid, and on which good management decisions can be made to ensure that you have as little return product or rejected product as possible into the future. So from my side, in that regard, on the 17025 lab quality audits, looking forward to getting hold of some of you guys here in the Western Cape. It's where I reside, so it'll be relatively easy for me to get to you guys. The initial one, I would imagine, will take pretty much a half to 3/4 of a day. And as we get further into the process, it should actually become a little bit quicker. We should be able to get you done within half a day, because it's a relatively small audit with regards to the number of tests that you guys undertake. This slide presentation will be made available to you folks, so my contact particulars and email addresses are there. So should you need to get hold of me because you're desperately looking for an audit, give us a shout, and I'll see what I can sort out for you guys. Otherwise, expect a call from me, and I will start setting up those audits over a period of time. Just from a perspective of time, Nico, I think it might be better that I just finish off the next two sections, which is on competency of staff and where we're at with some of the documentation and series, and then we can open it to questions. On the deeming competent of personnel, it is an ISO standard 17024. So it is in the same context as the way we are accrediting our laboratories. There are a number of aspects here. It's quite a lengthy presentation, but I'm not going to go through all of them in detail. There's a whole lot of history to where we came from. We started with the CETAs and try to get a qualification in place, but that didn't work too well. We tried to move across to the QCTO, the Quality Council for Trades and Occupations. That also was a little bit of a nightmare with all sorts of bureaucratic systems that were perpetually changing. And we basically dumped all of that and went with 17024. It is a process that will be the deeming competent of personnel under the National Laboratory Association of South Africa, the same organization that is running the National Proficiency Testing Scheme under ISO 17043. So again, it all lies with this ISO standard. It's got the framework on which it's actually based. It's internationally recognized, not that we want to get internationally recognized laboratory testers, but the system is internationally approved, and as a result of that, it's in the hands of industry. If we need to make changes, it's quick and easy to do that. We don't have to run through a whole lot of bureaucratic processes to actually get those changes to take place. The NLA is also looking at doing other certification of personnel. Metrologists are currently already in place with them, and they're also looking at the stack emission testers. But by far, I think the volume of people that will be moving through the NLA and getting that certification would be in the civils environment. It includes the quarries as well as the ready mix fraternity and all the other secondary manufacturers and suppliers. We are looking at anything from 1,500 up to about 5,000 individuals that we would be looking at certifying. What is 17024? It's the conformity assessment for the deeming competent of personnel. So it's really just to say that the person can undertake a certain number of test methods that are mentioned on that certificate to the correct standard. It's the certification of those personnel. It meets the requirements of a certification scheme, which is internationally recognized, and globally accepted process for the assessment and periodic reassessment. So this will be in place for a period of 5 years, and every 5 years we would come back and do a slightly less intensive deeming competent, as long as that person has been within the employment of the industry for that full 5-year period. The basic process, we ran through this. I'm going to very quickly just leave that up for a moment while I just emphasize one or two of the points, and that is we ran a full trial on how it was going to work in a blended training environment. In other words, there are videos that are online available for the individuals to watch and then go and practice in the laboratory. There is an interaction between the trainer and the video supplier, so that should the individual have queries, they can actually interact with one another online. I think out of that process, including the evaluation that we did, there was really good feedback, both from the person who did the evaluation of the individuals at AfriMat in Worcester, as well as the individuals that were assessed. There's a theory component, there is a witnessing component where somebody physically watches what is done and make sure that the person is actually deemed competent for those particular methods. I think in this point, I'd just like to mention that there are videos now available on all the basic test methods, granular and aggregate, which are the two main ones that are applicable to ASPASA members, that are available on subscription basis for a month-to-month basis or on an annual basis, so that you can actually get your staff to watch the videos. The main benefit, in my opinion, is the fact that in the remote facilities where a lot of the quarries are actually set up, you can actually have that video available to the individual. They don't have to leave the site. They can sit and watch a video a day. They can sit and watch a video a week. They can go back and watch the video again and again and again in various aspects. They can look at the preparation. They can look at the equipment. They can look at the calculations individually, and in that way improve the quality of what they're actually doing within your particular facility. As I said, there is also a link back to the trainer, so they can also ask questions. If need be, we can have a quick Zoom or WhatsApp video chat around some of the queries they've got, and in that way try and get everybody exposed to the same methods as quickly as possible without actually having that transport or travel cost added into the process as well. There is a combined training / certification process in place. A training provider such as Sabita can be approached to assist with training. Once the training is done, a totally separate activity of deeming competent, so there's no bias with regards to who is involved in the training being the same person who's actually certifying the individual. That would be registered through the NLA. There'll be a theory component that they need to get through first as a pre-screening process. We will then apply a witnessing process to them. We normally group them together in 3 to 5 people per witnessing expert. There will be a moderation process or a review process in place to make sure that everything is being done according to the process, and that if you've got somebody in Cape Town and somebody in Joburg being looked at by 2 different witnessing experts, at least we can look at moderating it and saying, listen, we've got more or less the same process in place. The certificate that will then be witnessed. As I said, there will be 1 material type per day. The individual will be looked at over a period of 1 day. There will be an independent evaluator. They will be having 3 to 5 people under their auspices for that particular day, for that particular material. And 80% of the basic methods, which I'm going to show you shortly, the people need to have an idea of what's actually going on with those particular methods. We would look at expanding this to maybe more complex methods at a later stage. I don't think that's going to be applicable, though, to the ASPASA membership. There's a right to appeal, so all the processes that lie under 17025 are in place in that regard, so it is fair, transparent, and the individuals can actually request that we relook at a particular decision that has been made. The methods we look at from an aggregate side of things, sampling of stockpiles and from conveyor belts, riffling, coning and quartering, wash sieve analysis, as well as a dry sieve analysis, which would be utilized for other quarries, flakiness index and ALD, bulk and apparent density plus water absorption for the +5 and -5, which is normally something that isn't undertaken in the laboratories, but it does allow the individual who's working in that laboratory to actually expand their understanding. And then also the loose and compacted bulk density, which is mainly for your concrete side of things, and then ACV and 10% fact. On the granular side, sampling of stockpiles, treated and untreated layers, the nuclear gauge density test, which is obviously not applicable from the ASPASA side of things. Riffling and quartering coning is in again sieve analysis, but now for the granular materials, and the hydrometer, and then the PR5, which covers your finest modulus and your grading modulus and your soil mortars, and then your Atterberg limits, and of course OMC and MDD. And CBR, not the UCS and the ITS. The UCS and ITS has been dropped off because not everybody undertakes the stabilization process. And of course, MC, your moisture content. You guys are not worried about asphalt. You're not worried about bitumen. On the concrete side, if the ready mix guys come in, they're the basic test methods we have a look at. If we're not going to physically watch what you're doing because the process is not available to do, or is more too complex to do, like coring or sampling of a conveyor belt, we would talk the person through that particular process and then allocate them a maximum 75% of the marks, which is 3 out of 4. 3 being competent to undertake the test method, 4 being competent to do everything, including all the calculations, the plots, etc. That's a little bit more of a detail with regards to how the marks are allocated, which I don't think is necessary to go into. Some of the venues we've identified to ensure that they're independent would be Gautrans, up in the Gauteng region. Engineering for the new laboratory between CSIR and University of Pretoria and SANRAL. We were in discussions with them around the use of that facility. Western Cape Provincial Laboratory, the SANRAL lab up in PE. We're also possibly looking at the laboratories in the Eastern Cape at Bishu and Queenstown, and then Free Trans, although they're in the process of still doing transition from TMH1 to 3001. So at this point, Free Trans is maybe not going to be on the facilities. KZN, we haven't really identified anybody on that side, although we are looking at getting hold of the University of KZN and the DUT, which is the Durban University of Technology. TUT has declined use because they're actually in the process of developing their own higher level of material tester. The actual process itself, I think I've covered that in a fair amount of detail. We would look at running one material type for a period of 4 days. On the first day, we do all the preparation of the samples that are required, which is the Monday. And then the Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, we would have between 3 and 5 candidates per evaluator. So we would be able to get out on a weekly basis between 9, that wouldn't be 9, it would be 12. Between 12 and 20 individuals, and we would look at repeating that as often as the demand actually requires. As I said, there will be a theoretical assessment on the test methods beforehand as a screening process to ensure that we believe the person is capable of being witnessed and understands the test methods well enough. If they pass, they're automatically allocated a slot for witnessing. If they fail, they can retake it at no additional cost within 1 month. If they fail that again, then they're out the system for a period of 3 months to go and ensure that they're up to the right level. On the witnessing of the competency through the NLA, as I said, we'll look at 80% of the basic methods that I've laid out for you there for the granular and aggregate side. The review process will in place with the option to appeal the decision, and then the issuing of the certificate will be in place for a period of 5 years. There will be a database of the testers who has qualified and is certified and who are in the process of being certified for which test methods as well. And then the assessment will be redone after 5 years, where you need to still be active in the industry. You need to have undertaken certain CPD activities as well, which we have identified. They're not onerous. They're not going to take you away from your work environment too much in that regard either. It's not like you need to go and attend conferences and seminars, etc. Although that is an option if the person is available to do that. There will be a theoretical online assessment. We won't be re-witnessing the individual again, so the cost of it second time round is going to be considerably less expensive. And that would continue then every 5 years. The person would be recertified, ensuring that they continue to stay within the industry. I'm not going to go through the mark allocation or the scorecarding. I don't think that's important. I think from a CPD perspective, just important for you to realize we're looking at continued employment within the industry within limits. A lot of the guys might be working on contract basis. If the person is not in employment at the end of the 5-year period and they approach us after maybe 3 or 4 months and say, listen, they've got another contract that they're actually going to be involved in, we would run the theory assessment. If they actually conform to that, we would consider actually then overlooking the fact that maybe they were out of employment at the time of the 5 years. But that is something we'd look at a case-by-case scenario. Test the theory assessment. With the last test methods, revisions need to be covered, and we just want to ensure that they're up to date with the latest changes. Check that they've been trained on any changes that have occurred. Attendance on seminars, conferences, and meeting participation, that's an optional one. And there's also an online questionnaire that we'd be looking at putting together. Maybe when there is a revision to a test method, we will put up a short questionnaire highlighting what those changes are and make sure that they're actually aware of what those changes are, and it'll be a method of training as such in an online environment. So the idea would be we need to actually get the guys registered on the NLA's website so that they can be deemed competent, and that would be considered to be then an individual who's working in the laboratory who actually understands those methods for which they've been deemed competent. Just to finish off on where we are with regards to the documents and where the document revisions are, I think the first one that we need to have a look at is COTO. COTO has now obviously replaced COLTO as of the 1st of March from this year. It's in existence for a period of 2 years as a draft document. During that 2 years, any queries and comments or inputs or improvements that are required need to be forwarded to the COTO committee, and that would be looked at for consideration for inclusion into the document when it goes through its final 2-year, at the end of the 2-year period, so that the document could go in as a final document. I think the important thing, or the important chapter for the ASPASA members is chapter 4. What they've done is they've split supply from construction. So chapter 4 is around the manufacturing and pre-approval of material, both at the facility where it's developed, as well as delivery to site. At that particular point, you change from chapter 4 to chapter 5. And I see that as a change in responsibility of who owns the material. There's no ways that once the construction process takes place under chapter 5, that the contractor can then go back to the supplier and say to them, listen, you didn't provide me with the right material. So it starts tying into where we're at with regards to the exclusion clauses. And my approach is that I would like to actually, to a certain degree, try and get those exclusion clauses removed in total. One, to improve the relationship between the suppliers as yourselves and then the contractors and the clients, because it's always been a little bit of a tense point. And my feeling is if we actually implement chapter 4 correctly, we can do that because the responsibility of the material is going to be physically seen as changing. And as a result of that, anything that happens to the material after it's been pre-approved on site is no longer the responsibility of the supplier. Chapter 5 is around construction. SAF is presenting courses on Chapter 4 and 5. So maybe at a later stage, I think they've completed all the runs on those particular training courses. But should there be additional ASPASA members who want to have that training provided, I'm pretty sure we can get the presenter to give a rundown on Chapter 4 and Chapter 5. It's a 2-day course. It's very informative. If there is a request for that, I think it's something that we need to actually have a look at. TMH5 has been replaced with Manual 37. It's been published under the CEBITA website. So you can go onto the CEBITA website. It's freely downloadable. And it basically replaces the old TMH5 booklet, which has been in place since 1981. I think the main differences that you need to consider in that regard is the fact that stockpiling, large stockpiles are sampled with the use of a front-end loader. Your smaller stockpiles will be done either with a shovel on your coarser materials or with a sampling tube for your finer materials, your crusher dusts and your sands. With regards to SANS 1083, it is under revision at the moment. It's going to include all the aggregate materials, and it's really just going to be a compilation of all the specification tables that currently lie in the KOTO document. And that is really going to be the makeup of the entire 1083 document. There will be an explanatory document that industry is going to put together with regards to how to interpret and utilize those tables. That's going to lie, as I said, with the various industry associations, ASPASA being one of them, the Concrete Institute, and the likes of CEBITA as well. And that document will be freely available, although the 1083 document effectively is going to have to be purchased through SABS. With regards to where we are in the test methods under the 3000 series, SANS 3001, all of the test methods are under review at the moment. All of them need changes. When they're going to be able to publish those particular things, unfortunately, I have no idea. They are in a serious state of flux. They are going through a process of rationalization and staff retrenchments. They're already understaffed. So unfortunately, I'm maybe a little bit negative with regards to where we are with SABS and the ability to actually function effectively.
Barry, we just got a time problem.
I'm done. Thank you very much.
Thanks. Timing is right.
Okay.
Your contact details is available from the office. I think if anybody's got major questions or major comments, then they should contact Annika or myself, and we'll forward it to you, and you can take it further. I'm just looking at my agenda, and I'm running a bit out of time, so I don't want people to leave and not listen to the others. So thanks for that. It's beautiful, and thanks for helping us with this stuff.
No problem at all.
Theolin, I think it's Theolin's turn now. Theolin is my chairman of the engineering committee, a very, very, very committed guy. And we have very committed people in this industry helping us, ASPASA. So thanks again, Theolin. It's up to you.
Thanks, Nico. Hi, everyone. Barry, don't worry. My presentation is short and sweet, so we'll catch up on time. Okay, so as of the beginning of this year, I just put something quickly together so that we can go through. We've had 2 meetings for 2021. So what we've done in these meetings is we're encouraging some of the professors and students to engage and trying to structure a platform that will allow the young professionals to develop or assist them in their development through the industry. So I did start off with a presentation on engineer development in the construction industry, and then Dr. Letitia van der Merwe did a presentation on finding your voice, and that was in line with women in mining. These videos are on YouTube as well, so it's actually very nice to just go through it and have a look at what we do. Last month, we had the second workshop, and we successfully registered ASPASA as a voluntary association to EXA. I'll take you through that. And then we had two presentations, the one from Prof. Nikki Wagner on geoscience of the real world from an environmental aspect. And we had Ms. Teresa Harting, PRN, to take us through the EXA road to registration. And further, we brought in a student to do a very nice mechanical paper on jaw under structure stress analysis. Okay, so the aim of the Young Professional Program. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to encourage, obviously, skills development through this process in line with the presentations and the experience of individuals. We further technical networking and sharing of experiences. So it allows a lot of the youngsters, and not just the youngsters, a lot of the experience in the room to discuss with each other. And, you're not just alone in your company to try and understand certain issues or problems that may be experienced in the industry. So we allow that open sharing to occur as best as possible. We also trying to push onto mentoring and coaching support. I did cover that in one of the papers on the engineering committee, ASPASA engineering committee that I run. But we will do more work on this area, as well as improvement of succession planning in the industry. So this is a key initiative. The first step was to get ASPASA as a voluntary association. And I will discuss that, how we improve the engineering planning or succession planning, or improving the technical abilities in order to improve industry standards. And lastly, just to give young industry professionals a voice for development direction. Okay, so just in a nutshell, who is EXA? So I'll just took this from the website, but for all of you all is for any person that wants to practice a trade. This practice or trade or occupation may be regulated by law. So in South Africa chooses to regulate this profession. So this has given rise to the EPA or the Engineering Profession Act. And the EPA has provided an establishment of a juristic person, which is known as the Engineering Council of South Africa. So the registration process is a tool by which EXA regulates the profession. And so where EXA falls is under the Department of Public Works and Infrastructure. They of the Council of Built Environment, and then you'll get EXA and the other affiliated professional bodies. So ASPASA registered as a EXA voluntary association. So on the 11th of May, I think there was some hard work between Paula, Anneke, Nico, and myself, but we eventually got this through. And it's quite an accomplishment for us for the reasons of what this means for ASPASA. So basically what we've done now is we've opened the door for some of our talented engineers to work towards their professional registration. We've got access to mentors and coaches, not just in the industry, but under the umbrella of EXA. And as I said, we're using the platform of the young professionals to develop these youngsters in a system where we can. Okay, so EXA registration advances for individuals and companies. So what are some of the benefits for the companies over here? So professional registration is in a few areas. So we have the PR-Eng, which is your BSc and BEng competent person. Then the PR-Eng Tech, which is your technologist type personnel who has your BTech in that area. Then we have your PR Cert-Eng, those candidates going up the GCC route and want to be professionals in those areas, as well as the PR Techni-Eng, which is the technician. So if you have a national diploma, you with specific amount of experience as per EXA rules, you can apply in terms of a PR Techni-Eng. So the disciplines more in terms of the quarrying environment, or let me just call it under the ASPASA banner, will be predominantly the electrical, electronic, civil, structural, mechanical, and GCC. And it's obviously not limited to other specific areas if that is applicable to yourself. So the alignment of the infrastructure improvement to technical standards and laws is what's key to take the industry forward. So a lot of our companies and organizations have qualified engineers that do not have their professional registration. So the professional registration basically allows them to act within the capabilities of which they present or which they have been approved by EXA in order to carry out certain functions. For example, if as an electrical engineer, you want to do a medium voltage installation or project on your quarry, let's say at the substation side, a professional engineer will work with the GCC engineer. So a GCC engineer is responsible for the equipment on site, but the professional engineer brings in the standards for the designs and the implementation to ensure that not only it's a safe installation, that it complies with the updated standards and laws. So that's just an example for you all. It also allows our industry to move, forward with new technology, etc. Our industry is plagued with very old equipment, and it's obviously a fine business balance, if I may put it in that way, to ensure that we have the most cost-effective solution. But taking it from a professional or engineering professional aspect, that balance needs to be weighed by a person like that. So obviously experience is key, and these youngsters, grow into good engineers, but they have to go, they have to work and get through certain areas and practice in those facets that they are approved under. So I haven't taken you all through the registration process. So as I said, there is the road to registration. There are videos on that, but just basically on the EXA end, in order to register, you have to see where you fit from a educational perspective. So even though you may not have, you may have a national diploma, you could apply for a PR technologist position, but it's an alternate route application. So it's basically what you look at from having much more experience in order to apply as an alternate route candidate. So the process, it goes to quite a few engineers, your documentation. We call them assessors, reviewers, and moderators. I also sit as part of the team as well, and a lot of the individuals apply for this. So before you do get to become a professional, that process goes to over 15 professional engineers aside from the council in order to recommend for approval. However, with this program that we are running under the young professionals, we assist the youngsters, whoever comes on board. So it's also a plea for all of you all on the Western Cape area as well. If you feel that you'll want to send a few of your youngsters on this program, well, not program, or the MS Teams discussion, please do that, and we will provide discussion as best as we can. Thank you.
Thanks, Theolen. That was nice and short. Just to add on to what your son said, I must just say to the people that are connected still, Theolen has pushed this young professionals thing to the point, as he said, we registered. I just got next to me lying here, we've got the stuff from EXA, and ASPASA will become a recognized ECSA, a CPD licensed body. So we will be able to give CPD points, but we have to register, and we'll use people like Theolen and other professional people to help us on this. That's a great step forward, because now we know how to get these registrations and CPD points. Thanks for all your hard work, and thanks for all your effort. You're a star, and thanks for that. I don't know if there's any. Barry Pierce has got a question. Barry?
Yeah, I think it's a really good move to start looking towards EXA registration within ASPASA. I think it's valid, and it further improves the quality of how the association is actually seen within industry. I'd just like to mention that there is an additional category that wasn't covered there, and that is for the laboratory managers, the people who work in the physical laboratory. There's a specified category there under 3.7.5 for civil laboratory technical controllers. So there is also an opportunity of improving the way the laboratories are seen by getting the more senior staff members registered through EXA, which then obviously then brings in all the scenarios with regards to professional conduct and all that goes with that as well, which I think is also a very important aspect.
Yeah, no, thanks for that, Barry. I haven't mentioned all of them, but yeah, I think it's important, if you do have time and the youngsters that are interested, go to the Road of Registration video that has been published on, and the whole criteria is there. I'm also, as part of EXA, I also do the Road to Registration, but that's it has to be, it's a 2 to 3 hour discussion in terms of that. So yeah, anyone that is really interested in this, or their teams start off with the YouTube video first, and then yeah, just pop an email to us and we'll assist where we can. Thank you very much.
Thanks to Olin. Barry, you can just lower your hand, otherwise I call it an old hand, and then you'll be cross with me. I think the next paper is very important, and it's nice to have a lady come and present. They're very difficult to find, and we've got a boffin here. Charlene, I think you can kick off and tell us the story which will make everybody scared. Thanks. You just need to put your speaker on. I mean, for a lady not being able to talk is a problem.
No, I'm not at all like other women. If you can think of a rule, I'll be the exception. Okay, I'm trying to share, but it is being a little bit difficult. Just grab that quickly.
Did you not give me a lecture earlier on how to see whose hands up? Now you can't handle it.
Can you see the slides?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, good. Right.
You just need to put it on presentation.
I am trying to, my blocky has moved my stuff here. Right.
That's it.
Good morning still, everybody. I would like to discuss financial provision in terms of environmental legislation. And this is specific to ASPASA. So I have not included everything. I've only included what I think is critical for ASPASA to consider. Now, Nico said earlier today that you get specialist environmentalists like you get specialist lawyers. That's absolutely true. I'm not a specialist. I grew up in the mining sector. I cut my teeth there. So if I need to be a specialist, I'll be a specialist generalist mining environment business person, I think. So yeah, many hats. I would like to talk about the change in the legal requirement that's imminent. Now, it was imminent because by 19 June 2021, which has passed, all operations must provide that applied for their mining right prior to 20 November 2015 must apply the following rules. They must show their annual rehabilitation plan, their the final rehabilitation plan, and the risk assessment report. This risk assessment report must contain the assessment process, the management activities, the costing, as well as the monitoring and auditing requirements as specified by law. So what happened was the MPRDA regulated how we would complete environmental legal requirements. Then it became NEMA that regulated how we apply legal requirements. And in between, we've been running between the two departments, trying to do the right thing because they differ significantly. And they come up with different rules. But luckily for us, the 11th of June, we received grace that we needed by the 19th of June 2022, the change that will make a significant change to the way in which you calculate the closure cost. So my question to all is, are we asking the right question? Because like this little screw is telling the hammer, wait, you know, not all nails are looking the same, and some nails are not nails at all. So if you have a hammer, don't necessarily whack something into the ground. Now, the problem we're dealing with is that because people have used the structure that's provided for in the NPRDA, they apply the rules as they understand it in terms of the NPRDA, and they don't look at the requirements of NEMA, and they fall short. So for the person that holds a hammer in his hand, every problem looks like a nail, and this is Emerson that said so. So if we then look at the scope of the financial provision, understand that we now need to provide for rehabilitation and remediation, which means if we broke something, we need to fix it. That goes for ecosystems too. We need to look at decommissioning and closure, which means that by the end of the life of mine, or the end of life of project, or the end of life of mineral, however you want to call it, we need to have a structure in place for the environment to heal itself. So first of all, whatever we broke, we need to fix. Now, additionally, we need to enable the environment to be able to look after itself. And then, additionally, we need to look at the remediation requirements of any residual impacts, anything that might be left behind that we might not have considered. Now, sadly for us, the definition for the word environment in NEMA includes people, and it includes the social structure. It's not only the biophysical environment. So when we deal with the biophysical environment, it's quite easy to deal with, because we can say we need this many grass and this much trees, and you know, and if this many birds go to this place, we're good. It's not the same. We need to look at the sustainable fixing of what we leave behind once we're done. So previously, what we used to do is very simple. So this is the hammer that we have in our hand, you know, the NPRDA regulations. The NPRDA regulations said, okay, do you have a plant? Good. If you have a plant, what we're going to do is we're going to measure the size of the plant. We're going to calculate a cost. We're going to multiply the area with the cost, and we know what it's going to cost us at the end of life of mine. And this you must put away, because this is what we call financial provision, or rehabilitation cost, or so there's various names for this. So if we look at this and we say, this is what we have, how do we alter it? The quick answer is we don't. We cannot use this information at all, because that's not what NEMA is asking. So the sums that we used to do, seem to be very logical, and it worked well because there was a structure and you could fill in the form and then you could have an answer. Here's the problem. We now need to determine this financial provision by first determining what the mine work plan is. Now, that's simple, because you guys have done mine work plans for all of eternity. I mean, it's Very easy to do. Now, in terms of that mine work plan, what we're going to do is we're going to take the mine work plan and then we're going to measure what rehabilitation I need to do in year 1 to fix what I did in year 0. What rehabilitation do I need to do in year 2 to fix what I messed up in year 1, and so on and so forth, for 10 years. So in terms of the annual rehabilitation plan, we calculate that for 10 years based on the mine work plan. Then we look at the final rehabilitation plan. So, okay, so this is the regular plan. Then the final rehabilitation plan, at the end of life of mine, what will this feature look like, or how would I rehabilitate this? Quarries are quite difficult. So how are you going to fix that? And then after that, we need to do a risk assessment of what remains. So if you deal with, just a moment. So if you deal with remediation of latent impacts, we need to look at the SLP and how we're going to influence people. We need to look at the social infrastructure and how we're going to enhance that. What residual impacts remain after the life of mine? Now, at any given time, this regulation stipulates that you must have available the sum of the actual cost of implementing the plans for a period of at least 10 years. That means that you need to have 10 years of rehabilitation plan cost. You must have the rehabilitation cost at the end of life of mine, plus you must have the latent cost or the risk that remain. So all three of these must be added together, and based on that, you then determine your financial provision. This must be done by a specialist. So a specialist means an independent person who is qualified by his or her demonstrable knowledge, qualifications, skills, expertise in, hear this, mining, environment, resource economy, and financial fields. Now, what that means is it doesn't mean you must be qualified in mining or environment or resource economy or financial. It means you must be qualified in all of them. Then, once that's done, it needs to be reviewed by an entirely different person. So one person needs to assess it, and an entirely different person needs to review it. And the review of the annual rehabilitation plans, the final rehabilitation plan, and the risk assessment needs to be done by an independent person that's qualified. So clearly, then there needs to be an audit. So there's a whole process that you need to go through in terms of the regulation. And then the reporting requirements for financial provision is as follows. So the annual rehabilitation plan must be done according to Appendix 3 of NEMA, the final rehabilitation according to Appendix 4, and the risk assessment report according to Appendix 5. So if we then look at the change in legislation, what we had in the MPRDA and what we need in terms of NEMA is not the same thing. And we need to start getting these things together so that by 19 June, when we need to submit our financial provision in terms of our annual assessments, we need to have a structure ready that will work for ASPASA. So if we then need to recommend a solution, let's consider itemize your environmental costs. So in your accounting infrastructure, you already have an independent auditor that assesses your accounting. So in your accounting infrastructure, have a line item for environmental cost. Consider your monitoring, consider your rehabilitation, have line items so that when it is calculated, you can show that on your balance sheet, because that's independently audited. Then in terms of your environmental risk assessment, this is not an EIA. Your EIA determines in terms of your activities what you need to do. So we're not talking about an EIA that considers listed activities. We are talking about a mining activity that was not a listed activity, and how these risks carry and could be detrimental to the environment. Then your annual rehabilitation plan. So in terms of your mine work program, how are you going to fix what you've just broken last year? Then your social and labor plan. Remember, we said your social infrastructure also forms part of your environment. And then have something like a drone map comparison. I'm calling it that because it's an easy way where you overlap one picture over another picture so that you can see what the difference is, and so that you can prove how you are doing and what you are doing in terms of your reduction in risk, because that's what you need to cost. And then eventually your environmental performance assessment. So in terms of your environmental performance assessment that was previously done according to the NPRDA approach, what we now want to do is we take the environmental performance assessment and we use the NEMA approach to assess the risk, and based on that, come up with a calculation. If we build all of this into a checklist and we regularly make sure that we assess these things as we go, by the time the assessment, the performance assessment is done, the work is done, and we just auditing what has already happened. And that's vastly different from having to put all these things together by yourself. So in terms of a way forward, I would recommend that you understand the legal requirements. You ensure that your EMP, your environmental management program, is relevant. Take out all the references to the incorrect mines, and take out all the references to trees that doesn't exist there, or wetlands that is non-existent, or whatever the case may be. Make sure that your audit findings have been assessed and dealt with. Ensure that all your incidents are reported. Remember, when you report your environmental incident, it already provides you with access to information that releases you from liability. If you don't report it, the liability just builds up and builds up. And then understand the implication of your decisions. I love what Niku and Anthony at ASPASA is doing in terms of drawing the manager in, because managers are the ones making the decisions. And if they don't understand the implication of their decision, then understand it's going to cost them a whole lot more. And then ensure that you have awareness of all the systems and how your employees are going to implement this. And very important, Niku mentioned it earlier, Anthony mentioned it, you need to engage with your stakeholders. If you don't engage with your stakeholders, your risk becomes bigger and it's going to cost more money. And then let the system work for you. Once you've established the system, work the system. Yeah, in short, I have a fair bit of experience in the space. I've been in the mining industry now 25 years, hence the grey. And yeah, I've been working in mining and solving mining problems from an environmental perspective for 25 years. You're welcome to ask any questions.
I think what I would like to say is that you and me are going to, I'm not going to do anything, I'm too stupid to do this, but you're going to develop these questions you've asked and these things. We're going to do a course on that, hey? And information, because we've only got until what, this time next year, 2022, to do something. So we need to get our finger out of our ear. I see there's somebody who wants to ask a question.
Anthony.
Yeah, it's actually not a question. Hi, Charlene.
Hi, Anthony.
It's more a comment just for the benefit of everybody. I think we mustn't sit and wait for June next year, because this process is it's a lot more work than what it appears to be, and it's complex. You know, if I look at some of the groups there, the guys on site don't have the resources to even think of starting this. They don't have the knowledge or the competency. So it's going to take a lot of work by somebody, and I think the sooner they get cracking, the better.
I agree, Anthony. I think what concerns me about the process is that people think they have a structure in place already, and I cannot explain clear enough how the structures that's currently available will not solve the problem. It's like saying, you know, I've had one child, I can raise the next one with exactly the same principles. Oh, man, it's going to fail. It doesn't work, even if you had one.
Yeah. And then the other thing, which just to comment, and this was actually shown in a dry run that was done by one of the companies. Before you do something on your site, you must actually be very aware of the implication that this is going to have on your financial provision. Yes. You know, if you think you're just going to strip a whole lot of another 5 hectares because you've got some spare cash, it has an enormous impact on what, you know, on the financial provision. So people must be very careful what they do and how they do it.
And the timing that they do it, because in terms of their EMP, they have committed to a mine work program. And that mine work program specifies that you will do A, B, and C. And if you clear, for example, a piece of vegetation that you need an ecologist to walk through, then you're legally liable. Then understand the risk becomes significant. Yeah, not just costly. You can go to jail.
Thanks, Charlene. I think that scared the hell out of me now. Luckily, I
No. You just need to understand what you're doing. It's all.
Okay. There's no more space in the hotel in the jails. They're full.
Yeah, says Charlene, you just need to understand. Eh? It's easy when you say it.
Okay. Well, if there's any questions, comments, you got the address, the people have got it. Otherwise, they send it to Annika or to me. We forward it to you. And I think that was great. Thanks a lot for your, I think you've woken us up over these meetings, but we're going to work together with you quite seriously now for the next year or so. So, right, let me carry on, and thanks for that. And our next speaker is the one that apologized, and his name is Jeremy Hunter Smith. I'm just going to say to you very shortly, and I'm not going to take his thing. We're dealing with the Royalty Act. The Royalty Act is a major problem for us in the quarry industry. Some of our companies have been nailed by SARS. They're going for the small guys. We're having a meeting, which I would ask you to please check on the 18th of August. If you do get the notification of the agenda, please share it with your financial people. They need to understand it. It's a huge financial cost. Could be a financial cost, and it's probably going to end up ASPASA taking SARS to court to try and prove that they're calculating it wrong. So that's all I want to say. If there's any questions, ask your accounting guys who normally don't come to these type of meetings to maybe contact us, and then to link into this discussion is going to be for the members. Then I think the last speaker is Anthony, because we're running out of time now. Anthony, you're going to talk about this nice thing about PDS, and you can kick off and go for it. Thanks.
Thanks, Nico. Yeah, I'm just going to share quickly. Can you see it?
No, not yet, Anthony.
I think
there it is. Wait, it's coming. Should be there now.
I think.
We'll try again.
Nothing.
No, not yet.
Charlene, tell him what to do. There's something, but it's not this. I don't know. It's got a heading, but we can't see. There's
Okay,
no.
Anthony, I see that they've changed the structure. So when you share, it gives you a screen and a window. You've just shared your screen.
Okay.
So if you have it open and you click on the window option, then you can select one of the windows in the window. There we are. Well done.
With your brains and my looks, we can conquer the world. Eh?
Good.
I think
Right.
it's
Good. Folks, yeah, good morning, or it's good afternoon, and thank you very much for this opportunity. And let's hope I can help the guys in the Western Cape a little bit with PDS and the way forward. Just a bit of background. According to Mine Health and Safety Act, the employer must take reasonably practical measures. You all know this by now. If you don't, I don't know where you've been. You have to prevent your pedestrians being injured as a result of collision between TMMs and pedestrians. And at any mine where there is significant risk, and the acting PI referred to significant risk earlier on, you must include measures, and please read Chapter 8 of the Mine Health and Safety Act. It will tell you exactly what those measures are. Each mine needs to identify the measures to be taken to mitigate the risk, and these measures can include, but are not limited to, risk assessments, PDS systems, traffic management planning, and anything else that is practical and that can reduce the risk of injury to people. So what should currently be in place? You need to have done a comprehensive risk assessment, and that should have been done, I think it's 2015 already. If you haven't done it, I would suggest as Nico says, get your finger out your ear and do it as quickly as possible, because it is a requirement. And then if you have done it, which is fantastic, the risk mitigation measures that were identified in that assessment need to be implemented. And then furthermore, measures to achieve level 6, and we'll go through the different levels, preferably level 7, should also be implemented on your site. So in terms of the levels, obviously none of us, we've all passed from 1 to 5. You certainly should have. I mean, site requirements, segregation controls, operating procedures, that's your SOPs, etc. Authority to operate is your appointments. Fitness to operate is your training certificates. Operating compliance, your checklists, your daily checklists, those sort of things. That is 1 to 6. 7 is operator awareness, and there is actually quite easy to do, but I will talk about that just now. And then, of course, it goes on and up to level 9, which is the full CAS and PDS systems, where the technology actually takes control of a machine and brings it to a standstill in the case of a potential collision or accident. So with PDS, the current situation, the revised implementation date, which was meant to be this year, has moved to 2023. Again, please don't sit and wait for 2023. It's a lot of work to get a PDS system installed. It's a costly exercise. And if you sit and wait until the end of 2022, I will guarantee you're not going to get it done. It's just not going to happen. The Minerals Council did a very good feasibility study on PDS, and there are a limited number of approved suppliers available. And that is why I say don't wait until it's too late. Start doing your plans now and get your things done now, because we don't have enough suppliers or skilled technicians to install these things if there's a huge rush. Some of the OEMs, in fact, most of them now have given access to some of the folk to trial level 9 PDSs. There are 1 or 2 trials that are in progress, but I'm not going to talk about that. It's still confidential. But level 7 systems are available from approved suppliers, and that basically, is what is on the market. Just a bit of warning, folks. Please deal with an approved supplier. There are lots of fly-by-nights out there, and you can spend a lot of money on substandard equipment, which will not work for you, and you'll end up replacing it. So the way forward, the Minerals Council determined that your traffic management system should be implemented as soon as possible. It's an easy thing to do, and I'm going to give you some guidelines a little later on. So get that sorted out. Get the first stages sorted out, and then you can assess what you need to do on PDS. Traffic management systems obviously assist, mitigate the risks of associated with TMMs. And what has come out of all the tests that we've done on PDS, and I've actually done some on my specific site. So we did a trial installation, is that without your proper functioning or well-functioning traffic management system, the PDS effectiveness is reduced. So I would really advise everyone to get your traffic management system in place very quickly. So the objective of traffic management is to achieve a zero harm, and I think there's absolutely no question about this. We don't want accidents, and we certainly don't come to work to get people hurt or to kill people. So let's see what we can do with traffic management for you. Traffic management, and this is from Mosh, deals with the safe movement of people and vehicles, and that really, puts it in perspective. Then why do you want to do traffic management? Well, you want to stop this. I mean, I think this is every quarry manager's nightmare to have something like this happening. Incidentally, there were 3 people killed in that incident. Now, I just want to expand a bit on this. You know, there are 3 fatalities, so there are 3 families affected. But we forget about the impact that accident has on the operator of that machine. He didn't wake up, she didn't wake up that morning and say, I'm going to drive over that car and kill 3 people. And I can guarantee you that operator will never drive a machine again. He or she will just say, that's it, I'm done. So you've actually, not just destroying the families of the fatalities, but the people involved in it also get very badly affected. The notion that a specific unwanted event has not happened for a number of years at an operation, it's not a justification for ignoring a hazard or specific unwanted event. And we're going to cover this just a little bit further on. So traffic management, these are some of the really important things that you have to have a look at. In your planning phase, you have to involve all your staff operating equipment. You must involve your organized labor, your supervisory staff, your managerial staff. Folks, it is critical. And the exercises that we've done, and I've been through this a couple of times at my own operation and at other operations, if you don't involve those people, you will fail with your traffic management because you won't have the buy-in, and they will resist it, they will make it fail, and you're going to be very, very frustrated. So from the beginning, and I'm talking from the planning phase, get the guys involved. Nobody knows an ADT better than the operator, and no one knows where the hazards are better than that guy that's operating it. He's in that machine or she's in that machine for 9 hours a day. They know exactly where it is, and listen to what they have to say. It takes a little bit of time, but it's well worth it. It's time well spent. So when you do your physical assessment of your site, it is absolutely imperative that you look at the scenario critically and you really, see what can be implemented. folks, don't fool yourself. If you if you think it's nice, look at it again and look at it from a different angle. Really, you must be as critical as you possibly can so that you can, get the right plan in place. And then, of course, the KISS principle. Keep it simple, stupid. A simple plan is easy to operate. It's easy for your operators to work with, and they will adapt to it and they'll use it. Make it complicated, they'll buck the system and they'll make it fail. So the approach that you take, for those of you who haven't done it yet, and I sincerely hope there are not very many, do your TMM risk evaluation, your historical data, go back 5, 6, 7 years, and review every single incident involving a TMM, even if it's a minor one, because that will determine your level of risk. And then you do a proactive analysis, which is what the MOSH principles are based on, to see what can happen. And then you combine these two, and you actually end up with a very comprehensive risk assessment, which shows whether or not you have significant risk. Moving on to the implementation side, the main focus here is on a separation principle. If you've separated your dumpers, your ADTs from buckies, they simply can't collide. And when we talk about separation, guys, the white stones that look so very nice don't stop a 30-ton or 40-ton ADT. You need to make a physical barrier. It needs to be a very, very good barrier, and I'll show you some pictures of what works. And then you must please be aware that your operational requirements are continually changing. No operation stays the same, and you need to be able to adjust your traffic management plan accordingly. And the plan is a living document, so you need to look at it on a regular basis, and you need to also let your operators come and tell you if they need to change something in a specific area of your operation. So we really want to develop and manage controls that will prevent unwanted events from happening. And again, a control, as I said, it's a barrier that either prevents or mitigates the unwanted event. The barriers, the soft material berms are fantastic. They're easy to put in, they're cheap to put in, and you have the material, and they really do work. Just some examples of the risk analysis and the controls. If you look at the picture on the left-hand side, it's at an entrance to an operation. Previously, pedestrians used to walk straight through towards the office building where that truck is standing. So there was interaction of pedestrians and vehicles uncontrolled. We now look at that specific scenario where the pedestrians are now stopped at that boom gate and then are moved off to the right-hand side, if you look at the picture on the right. And all along that wall is a walkway where they will be out of the way of the vehicles and will cross over. This is a photograph from the other side. Will cross over at a pedestrian crossing. Now, you may say that, it's just a pedestrian crossing. The whole thing with the traffic management is to control. It's controls, and this is a controlled point where you've limited the risk and people can cross there in a safe manner in order to get to where they have to get to. You'll never, ever, ever exclude pedestrians from they have to interact with vehicles at some stage on an operation. But the point that you want to, or the place you want to get to, is to have that as little as possible to reduce the risk as much as possible. This is a bit of a picture of what it looked like before traffic management was put in. As you can see, a completely chaotic scenario, and it's an accident waiting for a place to happen. Whether it be a minor or major accident, it is still an accident. Once the controls had been put in, all nice and neat, everybody knew what they were doing, knew where they had to go to, and you have a structure in your regions. A bit of a bird's eye view of an operation. I know this operation quite well, happens to be where I work, and what we did here. As you can see, there's a truck parking area, which is clearly demarcated with the arrow there. Trucks go down, where that one is going through the control point there, where my cursor is, and everything is one-way traffic. So we don't have any machines coming head on to each other, except on the benches in the narrow benches, which is a common characteristic of a lot of quarries. But you'll see there we've got a pedestrian walkway which goes all the way down, right around, all the way down to the plant. We close off unused benches. That's a very important part of things, so that you stop unauthorized people going into those areas. You never know what they're going to get up to. And then if you have big trucks, such like interlinks and things, you're going to run short of space, as we do here. We have a truck staging area there, where we stack them on a first come, first serve basis. And that way we control the amount of traffic that goes into the loading areas, which is one of the places that normally has a lot of congestion. Trucks love to try and get in and stand next to the stockpile, and so does the second, so does the third, so does the fourth, and eventually the front end loader can't get to where it has to get to, and it forces its way through, and you end up with a collision. So we limit that, and the front end loaders can move around, and the trucks can move in and out safely and quickly. At the processing area, this is at the primary tip. There we implemented a circular movement, again one way, and we separated buckies, park separately. There's the pedestrian walkway coming through, completely separated from TMMs. A one-way movement around, the dumpers come in reverse and go out that way. So we limit the interaction between light vehicles, pedestrians, and heavy vehicles, and heavy vehicles and heavy vehicles. A lot of operations have narrow haul roads because of the benches. That's the nature of the quarrying industry. This operation is no exception to that. And we looked at it and we thought, now what on earth are we going to do with this? So we found a place where we made a staging area, and there you can see one dumper waiting, this one coming out fully loaded. It's got free rein, he's got the road to himself. And at this point, it's important to note that your excavator operator at the site, at the loading site, controls the traffic. He's the person, or she's the person, that will be in charge of that area. A little bit of a bird's eye view of what it was before we actually put our plans in place. You'll notice that this was two-way traffic in all these areas. You'll see where the stars are indicated were potentially high risk areas of collision. And we scratched our heads, and because of limited space, and I'm sure a lot of you have that as well, what on earth we're going to do, how we're going to sort this lot out. So what we did was we stole a little bit of space, and we put a berm down the middle and split the roads and put in a one-way traffic thing and changed the circulation pattern, and we've reduced the risk there. It's a free-flowing traffic plan, and very, very small risk involved. So the challenges was management commitment. Obviously, you as managers have to be fully committed to getting this thing implemented and to working. You need to change the behavior of your staff, contractors, and customers. There's always going to be a resistance to change. That's a human factor. It's a natural thing. Implementation of systems, the resources and times, and then again we come back to our favorite one, the satellite industries, that might have access to your site and may either go through or share your entrances. So they are a problem sometimes. Implementation. Successes there, as I said earlier on, the consultation with all the TMM operators. You must be willing to change your plan. You've got to monitor it for at least the first couple of months. You've got to make sure that the compliance is adhered to. And then you've got to have a continued commitment. Just keep it going. Once the guys have got it going and they're happy with it and they've made a few polish changes and a few odds and sods, they will make sure it works because they actually feel a lot safer as well. So our successes when we did this, as all staff enjoyed it because they were involved in the planning phase and the implementation phase. The separation of pedestrians from TMMs, we actually had a truck run away. It ended up in the berm and there was a pedestrian on the other side of the berm and nothing happened to him. He just got a hell of a fright. But it does work. And then you get the feel safe climate. I always refer to this as the spouse test, where I actually did take my wife through the operation and we drove through it while it was operating. And at the end of it, I said, "How did you feel?" She said she felt very safe because she knew that the dumpers couldn't get to, or the loaders or the big trucks couldn't collide with us. And yeah, so it works. I always say, take a lady through, make sure it's the right lady and not your girlfriend that you shouldn't be taking there, because that'll just make another risk somewhere else. But ladies tend to have a better sense of danger than men do. Men have got equipment that makes us a bit stupid when it comes to danger. So ladies are far more astute when it comes to something that's dangerous, and listen to what they say. Then the other success, the last one, was the management of supplier collections. When suppliers do deliveries and that sort of thing. So they included in the plan as well. What did it cost? It costs you time and effort, a little bit of your machine usage, your front end loader, maybe a dumper occasionally, a lot of common sense, and a lot of commitment and effort. So really, the total cost, including signage, and this was negligible. It was really not much at all. And there's a little bit of upkeep. You want to replace your signs every so often. They get faded, or someone knocks them over, or whatever the case might be. So there will be a bit of upkeep, but that's general maintenance that you have on your site. Folks, the returns, and that's the thing everyone always asks. Everyone is safer. You feel safer. You operate safer. You have a safe flow of TMMs and trucks. You reduce the congestion at your critical points, at your loading points for your front-end loaders. Your dumpers run, freely. You don't have interference of small vehicles and people that shouldn't be there. And we measured this and improved productivity on a tons per hour basis. In addition to that, our loading times improved by 25%. So, we use less fuel, there's less risk, there's less grey hair from quarry manager side, etc. So all in all, please, if you need help on this, contact Nico. We can help through ASPASA to get your plan in place. It is important that you get this done as soon as possible and make sure it is effective. That's my story. Thank you very much. You're welcome to ask any questions.
Is there anybody with a question to Anthony? Right, it seems not. I suppose everybody is in a bit of a hurry.
Yeah.
Anthony, thanks for that. Every time Anthony talks about there's one hand. There's a hand. Okay. Willem.
Morning. I think the other thing that is most important is training of the operators. I'm not a big fan of MQA training modules. As you see in the training modules, they ask a question with variable answers, and with common sense, you can pick the correct one. But like if you want to work in front of machine, what must you do? So I must use the lockout procedure, which is common sense. But the contents of the lockout procedure, how it must be done step by step, is sometimes not understood by the operator itself. And he passed his training, but in terms of what he really had to do on a day-to-day basis, it's not Fanako Izolo, it is the new procedure, and he knows only lockout procedure. He don't know what to do, how to do it, and when to do it, who to be involved in that, and I think that is critical with any machinery at mind. And that's the only thing I want to add to the excellent presentation. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks, Willem. And I think, you know, if you implement a proper traffic management plan, and when I say a proper functioning one, and I fully agree with you, your operators, you will immediately be able to see who needs additional training, who's not competent, who shouldn't be there, and you can make the adjustments and get the, you know, get the corrective actions implemented very quickly. It certainly makes it a lot easier to see where the non-conformances are. Are there any other questions?
Right, Anthony, thanks a lot.
Thanks, Nico.
Great. Yeah, thanks a lot. I must just say thanks to everybody that did a presentation. Sorry we went a bit long, guys, but I think all these subject matters are one as important as the other. As you know, we record this, and I'm sure by Friday, Annika will have the link on the YouTube. So what you do is you go to YouTube, you just type in YouTube, you get to YouTube, you type in ASPASA, and then you rock up at ASPASA's YouTube, and then you can say it's, you know, regional Western Cape, and then it takes you to this. And then maybe share it with your people in the companies who didn't attend or don't attend, and maybe you can take a piece out and show it in a boardroom or wherever to people so that we can share the information we're gathering. I think we're in a new world and a new way of doing things. But thanks for that. And our next meeting is in the Northern Cape one. We're just trying to find a speaker for the DMRE, and then we'll do the Northern Cape one, roughly the same concept, but we will have another one. But thanks for joining, and keep in touch with us, and please have your jab and keep safe. Thank you very, very much.
Thanks, Nico. Goodbye.